so shy, so he wouldn't make the first move. So Auntie Van had to make the first move. So when he couldn't take the stoning anymore because Auntie Van was stoning him every day, then finally he gave in. And Auntie Van told us his story. Prophet couldn't take his stone anymore, so he just gave in to me. He couldn't take it no more.
This man, Justin Duffus, became the love of her life, and she affectionately called him Prophet, and we called him Dada. The name should tell you something about this gentleman who did the right thing by her and married her with 3 children. Their union produced 9 children: Hyacinth, Velmar, Jacqueline, Pamela, Lovell, Garvin, Deron, Arville, and Lorraine.
Well, the family was happy. They faced insurmountable challenges, the main one being Dada's unexpected illness, while the children were very young. Auntie Van again proved to be a phenomenal woman because she had to do much of the physical activities like farming and carrying the load. Our parents, uncles and aunts often share hilarious stories about Auntie Van, taking them to hole to dig Barbie yam. They would dig yam even when the rain was pouring. One would dig, another would pass, and another loaded the hampers. The older boys, Bertie and Uncle G and Darren, they were delegated with the responsibility of taking care of the animals. Auntie Van, but in spite of all that, Auntie Van was the head of the household. Auntie Van was the breadwinner. So Auntie Van ruled the household with iron fist, Jamaican talk, iron fist. No one could expect less with 12 children and the demands of his household. But Auntie Van was not daunted. She was a multifaceted individual, so she took on the job. She became a farmer, a dressmaker, a vendor, a chef, and a housewife.
Auntie Van loved to go to Crawl Bush. She would take the children and headed down the hill, where she reaped crops that she planted, as well as cocoa, coffee, and bananas. However, it seemed that her favorite activity was finding the millie mango trees. Auntie Van knew where every millie mango tree was in Crawl. And I remember that there was about 5 or 6, and she would take us from tree to tree and pick mangoes. Of course, we were the ones to climb the trees and, of course, catch the mangoes. It goes without saying, Auntie Van was not always impressed with our skills in those areas.
That's true, that's true. When climbing the tree, even though you are afraid, she would push you up into the tree and say, "Go up, girl, go up." She would even take a stick and I would be crying. I was the smaller one, so I would be crying and say, "Blood cancer bite me, ma, me can't go up." He said, "Girl, me say go up in that tree." Or you would get one of her famous nicknames, and we didn't want that. We would spend all day and return in the evening. Auntie Van hardly took any measurement for people she sewed for, but the clothes fit perfectly because Auntie Van was not a house lady. Auntie Van liked farming. Auntie Van was a tomboy, so even though she was good at sewing, she never actually stayed home and do any sewing. So if somebody asked her to sew a particular garment, Auntie Van wouldn't have any time to take any measurement. Auntie Van just go ahead and sew. And when those persons come, it fit perfectly, especially the uniforms. She also made shirts for her sons. She was poor, but her children usually were well dressed for every occasion because Auntie Van was a fashionista. Auntie Van always have to look good. Auntie Van always have to be ready. And her children have to has to look good as well. She would go to Frankfield and buy beautiful fabric to make dresses for herself and her daughters.
As you have heard, Auntie Van is a phenomenal cook, and certainly could have been a top chef if she had pursued that profession. People who were coming from river or bush would stop by for a cool drink of water or lemonade. But some would just hang around for dinner because Auntie Van was such an excellent cook. People far and near looked forward to eating from her pot.
Auntie Van was a real hustler, and money did not stop her from preparing for the masses. She's an expert in making manish water, gungo soup with corn pork. Auntie Van had a chocho arbor, and Auntie Van did everything with the chocho. Auntie Van curried chocho, she brown stew it, she cook it like yam, she put it in a soup, she do everything with it with her chocho. Auntie Van was just like that. She made the best grater cakes, blue jars, asham, coconut drops, and pudding you have ever tasted. She would sell these and make up for what she earned as a helper. She usually advised her daughters and granddaughters, "Girl, uno fi learn fi cook, cause every man love them belly, whether they come from mom's house or Kim's house."
Family was always first for Auntie Van. And so, despite the challenges she faced with poverty, she believed in education and believed that education should come first as it was a key to success. And as a result, she took every opportunity to ensure that her children gained the highest level of education she could offer. She planned and worked along with Dada and sent the children to school. Money was not an issue because she was a phenomenal woman who knew how to take her hand and turn fashion. She would, instead of eating the eggs, save them and gave them to the children to sell in Frankfield. When she had no eggs, she gave them whatever she could find to give to a vendor to sell. Sometimes she would give them a piece of yam and ask Miss Mary, who worked at railroad station, to cook them for her.
Auntie Van had the chance to travel in 1988 after Hurricane Gilbert. She went for the experience but returned shortly after. While it was a time when Jamaicans were able to freely migrate to England, she never felt the urge to desert her husband and her younger children. She was a phenomenal woman who recognized the importance of family and the need for a stable family life.
It was a good thing that she made that decision to return home, because no one would expect that Aunt Lois would have died in 1991. I was only 7 years old, but the memories of that day still etched in my mind. First, it was disbelief, then bewilderment. I remember following Auntie Van to Miss Liz's wall, and she was just coming from bush, probably crawl, and she had barely put down the food bag when she got the news. She had a cutlass in hand, and I remember her placing it on her head, and she wept and wept and wept. I have never seen someone weep so much in my entire life. And by this time, she started adjusting to life without Pam. A short 9 years later, she lost the love of her life. And October 21st, 1999, he died at home. She was committed to him through sickness and through health because she was a phenomenal woman. She was phenomenal because of her strength, and she showed this strength through difficult times.
Even after Dada died, she ran the household like a stalwart. By this time, she had numerous grandchildren to contend with. However, great and small had to obey her rules, whether they like it or not. She would, as you sleep, as she would say, as you sleep, girl or boy, you slide. And she would give you a piece of her tongue. Or she would give you a look, you freeze on the spot. Now, one night, the house was in uproar because one granddaughter, who will remain nameless, decided to put on her green cape. That was the sign that something was about to happen. She broke a bottle, stepped on the glass, and Auntie Van was about to deal with the situation. All of us children dashed behind her to see what was going to happen.
And we all stopped in our tracks. We just heard, "Closet rat, I wanna go." One grandson, who will remain nameless, was at the front of the line. And he received that nickname, which stuck, Closet Rat. This nickname tactic used by Auntie Van was airtight. We were all afraid of nicknames. So some was so scared that others were scared when they used that name. And the famous Caesar Mongoose can tell you that. Nowhere can you find a household with names like Harbor Shark, Caesar Mongoose, Closet Rat, Puss Meat, Percy Ginny. Only a phenomenal woman could leave such a legacy, for we will always remember her for her famous nicknames in the family.
Even though we were sometimes intimidated by Auntie Van, she ensured that it was not to the point where we were terrified of her, just enough to keep us in line. To bridge the gap, she would engage us in culinary activities. She taught us girls to make jam, fruit juices, soursop was her favorite, and roast jackfruit seed. We also found out that she had a great sense of humor. Our cousins would remember well Auntie Van and a certain kind of yam. Auntie Van had a favorite yam, which name I cannot state in the church. We just call it the pee yam. Every time Auntie Van came from bush, she always seemed to find that particular yam, and she would just put it down on the table, and then she would say in a very loud voice, "What a nice round fat piece of pee yam. It must taste good." And after Auntie Van cooked that yam, Auntie Van would just sit down and just lick her finger and say, "What a pee nice. What a pee dry and nice." Everybody would start laughing. She would then behave cross and say, "I want to kin out not eat for. Wanna kin it for her?" And then would laugh again, and she would turn and she would look at you and say, "I know for your pee me I talk of you." Already.
Justin had another of Auntie Van's humorous moments. Many of us may not know, or many of you may not know, that Auntie Van was a wrestling fan. And when we were watching a wrestling match, man, it seemed like Auntie Van was in the ring. And you would hear the comments like, "Lick him in the gut side, boy. What? Not make you hold her down. Lick him in the gut side. Lick him in the gut."
Auntie Van was not just family-oriented, but also community-oriented as well. People at church, her friends and neighbors will never forget her. Oh, how she loved church. No service could miss her. Whether it was night or day, rain or shine, she truly epitomized the text. Oh, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together. That was written on the wall right behind Auntie Van every Sunday. She was involved in church, and she was involved in church and offered her services as head cook and back wash. She was in everything. She was Sunday school teacher, ladies president, and choir member. Wherever you put her, she would fit in. But with folks like Auntie Van, church was entertaining for children and grandchildren that had to go with her. Sister Duffus was truly an energetic worshiper. She was a prayer warrior. Auntie Van liked to worship. Auntie Van would shout lustily from her seat down there, that bench right down there. Auntie Van would shout out in a very high-pitched voice, "Hallelujah!" and speaking in tongues even at rallies. While she shouted, everybody would remember her at rally. She would dance from right at the back of the church there, from the doorway come right up. She would dance, and she would start by saying, "Rally, rally, 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 a rally, a rally, a rally, a rally, rally!" Auntie Van.
Auntie Van was probably one of the persons who collected the most money at rally because her community reach extended far and wide. I remember her sending us to Spalding's to collect her contribution from Patmore's, but she would not send us empty-handed. She would send sorrel or whatever she thought would have served as a gift. In fact, even last December, while she was ill, she was determined to send the usual sorrel to Mr. Patmore. Before she died, she also requested that her body goes to that home connected with her friend, and as she was dedicated to that friendship for many years. That is why she is a phenomenal woman. She has often sought to build her community and was always loyal and dedicated to her friends.
This phenomenal woman was not only loyal and dedicated, but was also very kind. We remember distant relatives visiting from abroad or who were sick coming to stay in the already cramped space. She would provide them with the care of a five-star hotel. Auntie Van loved to travel, and after Dada died, she took the time to do so. She would spend at least 5 months in America each year. There she made friends with Aunt Patsy's neighbors and would cook the good Jamaican food she took up for them. She always had warm food on the stove and made it a point of duty to cook even for passers-by or neighbors. They looked forward to her visits, and we looked forward to her return. We knew that family and friends would soon be rewarded with all sorts of foreign goodies. Everyone also looked forward to Easter and Christmas. During these periods, she distributed buns, cheese, and sorrel.
Auntie Van always looked out for me. For many years, I haven't eaten meat, and whenever I came to a family gathering, she would steam callaloo or some other vegetables, and as soon as I walked through the door, she would say, "Me have something for you," because me know say you're no woman will eat some of them something here. As I sat on her bed that last day we spoke, and we chatted on that last Sunday in February, in a low tone she whispered, "Are the same old flapper." I am happy to be reminded be remembered to her as the same old flapper.
Maybe it was her willingness to open her heart to others, why her heart was not so easily broken. During the period 2012 to 2014, Auntie Van again faced deep sorrow as she mourned for her children, Delroy and Ruby, who predeceased her. Yet, because of the phenomenal woman she was, she remained steadfast, and she placed herself in God's hand. She trusted in the text, in Isaiah 43 and verse 2. "When you passeth through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee."
We cannot remember an instance when Auntie Van complained about life or the challenges of life. She never complained about pain or weakness. Two of her favorite